Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back from your break. We're resuming the session now. So, over to you, Graham.
Thank you very much, and welcome back, everybody. Um, I'm going to start again in the presentation, just pick up where we were before, but I want to share a thought with you. How about personal branding and personal marketing? Your career can be thought of as a product or service that you market to potential organizations or your own organization you work for and manage in the same way as any product or service. You have the price that someone's prepared to pay, which is your salary and value. You have your expertise, and you can go for a broad, a mass, or a niche market. Give you an example: if you were an accountant or an architect or maybe a legal specialist, a solicitor or a lawyer, well, you could offer your services on every aspect of the law, for example, or you could specialize in, let's say, copyright law, and then maybe further specialize in international copyright law, and then further specialize in international copyright law for sports companies. So you become the go-to person in that business, in that sector. And over a period of a decade or so, you could become an absolute expert and demand higher fees. So all the time thinking about, how do I market myself, my career, using these different situations? And place, of course, is where you're based, where your location is. If you are working in, let's say, London, you might earn more money in Frankfurt or in Dubai or Abu Dhabi or Chicago or New York. So this is the idea of thinking. And so maybe as we go through the second session, you might want to think about, how do I use these ideas for marketing myself in my career? So the marketing communications mix. Very few marketing companies or departments ever do just one type of promotion. You do all of the things you can see on this slide. We do promotions, we do events, we do talks, we do publicity, we do webinars, direct marketing through email and post, maybe some sort of interactive marketing, personal selling, advertising in dozens and dozens of different channels, everywhere we can to try and reach the customer. Sponsorship of sports people, um, promotion of events, all these things come down to the marketing communication mix. You will hear two phrases used in marketing: above the line and below the line. Below the line is basically brand recognition. You're not asking me to buy anything, there's no special offer. It's like Pirelli at Formula One. You see them everywhere. And the hope is that next time you choose the tires for your car, you'll choose a Pirelli. Above the line is very much more specific. It would be about, in that tire depot, a promotion on Pirelli tires for a particular vehicle. It all comes down to being based on the product mix as well, the 4Ps. And this then expands into the advertising or promotional mix. Marketing strategies basically follow into two or three sessions, though, so two of these sections. Your marketing strategy is either to create new markets for new customers or sell existing products and services to existing customers, which is, by the way, far and away the easiest. It's very much more difficult to try and win a new customer with a new product. And that's where a lot of advertising dollars are spent. Some of the phrases here you'll see, like optimization of process. That means the most efficient way of getting to your customer. And the conversion analysis is how many views turn into clicks, how many clicks turn into sales, that kind of analysis. An interesting concept that's come out in the last few years, and this was a book that came out, The Difference Between Blue Water and Red Water, is this idea of whether you meet and try and beat the competition, or whether you define a new playing field. So the red ocean strategy, if you can imagine a sea with sharks in it, this is the analogy they're talking of. And everyone's fighting over the existing fish, if you like. And all the sharks are competing with each other. And they're trying to offer better prices, better products, better services, more incentives, more special offers. And I suppose this would be very much the mobile phone market today in most developed countries. It's a very competitive industry. The differences between them are tiny, and it's all about marketing and brand and special offers. The blue ocean strategy, well, this would be something where you just literally shift into much more of an open water, where you have a new market where the competition isn't relevant, there is no competition, and you create a new demand, and there's no arguments about better pricing or better promotion. Two famous examples of this, of course, were the iPhone a few years ago, and I suppose also more recently Netflix. Netflix didn't try and compete with Hollywood films or TV channels. They created a whole new platform for themselves. And there are some new competitors, and most of the big TV networks now have an online offering. But in the early days of Netflix, they dominated a brand new market, a new demand. Of course, recently, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, Disney Channel. See, Disney Channel is a very interesting Me Too marketing. When it comes to marketing, you have what we call the pioneer marketing, where you develop something new for the first time, or you have the Me Too marketing. Disney Channel has just launched their own version of Netflix, but only with Disney films. Now, it's going to be very, very successful because they're selling existing products to existing customers. Every single one of their signups, I almost guarantee, and there's millions of them, will be Disney fans. Disney fans. All those people that went to Disneyland, Disney World, watched The Lion King and everything else. So think about, am I going to compete or am I going to reset the market? Am I going to do something completely different? Building on this is the idea developed over many years by people like Kotler, and it became known as the Anzoff matrix. And this has two axes, the markets versus the product. Let me guide you through this. At the bottom right-hand side, where it says diversify by innovating products for entirely new markets. Now, that's a Tesla for you, all right? There is a very, very small niche market for electric vehicles. Tiny in comparison to what most people buy. Tesla wants to make it a mass market. He's got a very innovative product looking for a new type of consumer. Hugely risky, very expensive. Diagonally across the grid, penetrate existing markets with current product offers. You are competing in the same market with the same product that looks identical, is identical. The only difference is the branding and the price and promotion. And this is very much about the consumer marketplace as well as the business marketplace. Let's take the example of office supplies. One bunch of photocopier paper is much the same as somebody else's bunch of photocopier paper. So you can compete on availability, delivery, and price. And all the other 9 boxes are variations on this. At the bottom left, expand current product to offer a new market. So this is product evolution. Let's bring it back to our career. If there are new changes in the marketplace, new skills required, new software tools, we need to keep ourselves up to date. Otherwise, we will become a dinosaur. So this is a new skill set we're offering based around an existing product, if you like. Product offers is about innovation product offers for existing markets. Now, that sounds very grand, but very often what happens is, and you'll see this when you go shopping, is you'll see a product advertised or maybe on the shelf, and it'll have a sign on it that says new or improved or new model. So when they bring out the latest Samsung 9 or the iPhone 10 or the Nissan, whatever it is. It's supposed to be a new model, but it isn't that new. It's basically the same as the old one, just a tiny weeny bit different. This was highlighted to me a while ago, and I was in the house and I found this cleaning product, and it had new splashed all over the front. And I read the back, and it said same contents, new packaging, right? But this was in small letters on the back. On the front was a big thing saying new, and it was only the packaging that was improved. So this does get us to buy things, though. It really, really does. That's why marketers do this. Marketing is only concerned with one thing: what works. This is why, by the way, there are lots of laws and regulations stopping advertisers and marketing people telling fibs about their products or making outrageous claims, because if they could, they would, in some cases. Not everybody, but some would. So your primary marketing tools, the dials on the box, the things you can change are your pricing, your channel, your promotion, and your offering. So these are the things you can slide up or down. You can change packaging, obviously, product, the information, the features, and how you communicate the benefits to this. The value, the discount, the rebate, the terms, the return options, these are all part of that. How and where I can buy your product or service. So, for example, I don't need certain items to be available to me instantly. Dell computers have an interesting model, whereas other companies you can buy online and have it delivered the next day. Dell make their products to order, and typically you'll wait 3 weeks for your laptop. That doesn't seem to discourage Dell's customers. They would rather buy something of quality, which was exactly to their configuration, than an off-the-shelf product, which may have been in a warehouse for 6 weeks anyway. And then once again, advertising and promotion works. Interestingly, some products are not put across as special offer products. It seems to go counter to their quality. So, for example, if you were buying jewelry or expensive furniture, you would be less persuaded by a special offer than you would do buying groceries. Now, demand generation is the highest form of marketing, where you get somebody to want something they don't currently buy or need. It's known as taking a horse to water and trying to make it drink. Now, you can't do that. Horses won't drink unless they're thirsty. So you have to make them thirsty. So we go back to the one I mentioned yesterday, which was Maslow's hierarchy of need. At the top is self-actualization, to be the best I can be. Next down is recognition, status. The third one is acceptance and being part of a community. What does this mean in marketing terms? Well, if I'm a marketeer and I've sold you a car, I need you to become unhappy with that car and want a better one and a nicer one. The worst thing would be is if you drove that car for 20 years until it broke and then you bought another one, and replace car for jacket or mobile phone or washing machine or house. If everyone in society only bought something once and used it until it broke, there would be no market for almost anything. So what we need is constant demand generation, and that's what marketing does. It makes us unhappy with that thing we bought a year ago, and now we want a new, bigger, faster one. Even going on holiday or going out to a restaurant, we're always looking for something slightly different or slightly improved. And this is a very, very important part of marketing. So that's module 5 finished. Now let's move on and talk about listening to the voice of the customer, or as it's more commonly known as market research. So the essentials needed to deliver customer satisfaction means knowing what your customer wants, what your customer likes, and what your customer demands. Um, they do say that nobody ever went broke underestimating the intelligence of a customer. Little things do matter most to customers, and you won't know that unless you get very close to them. So let's look at a few of these concepts. If you look at this graph here, this explains a little bit about the different types of customers, and it links into the product life cycle. There are early adopters. We call them space cadets. They want the latest, the greatest, the newest of everything. They have the iPhone 12, the Samsung 15. Their car is only a few years old. They've got the latest fashions. They've got the latest haircut that Ronaldo's got. They just want the first of everything. Um, they pay more for that. You tend to pay higher for early adopters. The professional technology mainstream. These are people, if this was a computer market, it'd be the early majority. Now, you can see that's a bigger percentage. That's over 32%. Then you get into the larger majority, the late majority, and this is about the same size as well. But if you combine those two parts of the market, 60% of any marketplace is the majority who will come into a market late. So let's put this into a simple context. You open a restaurant, you open your fancy coffee shop. The first 6 months, 12 months, maybe 2 years are difficult. The customer numbers are low. But as your reviews rise, as word of mouth kicks in, as you get more customers, more and more people come because they're the early and late majority. They're not the people that want to be the first or the newest or the trailblazers for anything. And then the technophobes, as they're sometimes called, or the laggards, the Luddites, will come round to the new product just when everybody else has stopped using them and moving on to the next one. There must be some people in the world, and I'm talking here of the developed modern world, who do not own or use a mobile phone, a smartphone. It's probably around 8 or 9%. This is the very end of the level there. And maybe one day they will start using a smartphone, probably just at the point that all of us have stopped using the smartphone. I was in a meeting not too long ago and somebody got out a BlackBerry. I have a huge affection for Blackberries. It was the go-to executive tool even just 15 years ago. You were nobody unless you had a BlackBerry. And I just think they're just hugely brilliant devices. And they've been using a BlackBerry for 20 years. They're a laggard, okay? They need to get with a Samsung, LG, Sony, Apple model like the rest of us. So this is hugely influential in defining different types of customers. Yes, we can look at the psychology, we can look at their spending patterns, we can look at their lifestyles, but in terms of mapping our product, this is very, very important. One question you might want to think about is, where would you spend most of your advertising budget? In the middle, of course. In terms of segmenting our customers, well, this is an endless amount of cutting the cake down into different sizes. Customers today are monitored constantly on the internet. Every click, every mouse movement, every page, every mobile phone conversation is potentially monitored. I've noticed recently, for example, when I often open a website or open an email, I immediately get another email or a phone call. They know what I'm doing. So our browsing journey is often how you segment customers. You can also look at location, time of day, their profession, their gender, their interests, their style, their lifestyle, their needs, maybe their personality, their values, beliefs. It's very commonly known that often marketeers in the old days would segment you down by the newspaper you read, the television channels you watched, the food you ate, these kind of things. They can also tell a lot about the device and the technology you're using, and also which platforms. So whether I'm a LinkedIn or a Facebook, whether I'm an Instagram or a Pinterest, and there are differences in these customers, would you believe, even down to the time of day you log in. So the huge amount of data, and this is one of the big growth areas in marketing. It's nicknamed big data. Most governments and certainly a lot of public authorities are trying to understand their populations, and they do that by the endless analyzing of big data. How do I explain it simply? Here's a thought. You probably go to supermarkets or shops to buy your food and groceries most weeks, or somebody in your household will. They will know, that shop or supermarket will know what you are going to buy and when you're going to buy it and which brand you're going to buy more than you do. 80% of what we buy is a habit, by the way, and they will know your consumption. Their computers will analyze, and they will know that Graham is due to arrive in the store next Thursday between 10 and 12 o'clock, and he's going to buy some milk and some yogurt and some cereal because that's what he always buys. So it's kind of that kind of technology that we have at our disposal. Very, very important. Target marketing is another phrase that marketeers often like to talk about. We target different types of customers: lapsed shoppers, occasional or seasonal buyers, offline buyers, those that like loyalty cards. I still get catalogs in the post because I'm one of those for some products. A loyalty customer, by the way, it actually means the opposite. So if I had a loyalty card, like a Shell card or a Nectar card or something, I have several of them. If I have my Sears card or my JCPenney card or my frequent flyer for Emirates, I also have a frequent flyer for Etihad and for KLM. So it's actually like a disloyalty card. What it means is I'm working the system and I like to get promotions. I like to get special offers. Upselling and cross-selling are two phrases marketeers use a lot. Upselling is to getting you to spend more money than you intended. So it would be a very simple example, and it's much more sophisticated than this in most businesses. Supersizing a meal, taking a side dish in a restaurant, going in to buy a handbag, but also buying a belt and a pair of shoes. I thought I was going to get away with spending $100, and I ended up spending $200. So I'm upsold. I'm spending more money buying what I intended to buy. I go and book a hotel room, and it's only $15 to upgrade to a deluxe room. I upgrade to a deluxe room. I buy an exit row seat on an airline. These are all upselling. And this is often where the profit is for most of these organizations. Now, who is our target market for new products? This is a very important database for marketers to have, because when you launch a new product, you want the attention of those folks. Now, cross-selling is different from upselling. It's where I buy something else other than my main reason for visiting that store or that purchase. So this would be when you go to a gas station and you fill up with gas, and while you're paying for your gas, you also buy some confectionery and some soda and a newspaper. This is cross-selling. If you go to a supermarket, you want to buy your groceries for the week, but you end up buying, I don't know, some towels and a jacket. You didn't intend to, but you cross-sold, right? And the last way of targeting a business is that people love to upgrade. So what this means is you just get someone to start at a lower level, simpler level, entry level price as it's known, but you give them an attractive upgrade path. very common online subscriptions, whether it's a book or video library or TV channel. You may start off with maybe a free 30-day, 60-day, and then ping, you then have to upgrade. So these are all different targeting strategies, and they come down to knowing your customer really well. And here's some other phrases we mentioned, but other things you might read about. And definitely there's a new phrase now called behavioral economics. And it's a fascinating area. It's quite a new area, even though it's been going 20 years. Why do we buy what we buy is really what it's about. And you can see there are some segmentations here around obviously country, demographics, psychographics, as I mentioned, the lifestyle, the class, the personal values, the attitude towards things, and then behavioral, how often we buy things, our attitude towards new things. Let me give you some examples. If you were buying something, how important would it be that it was environmentally friendly? It was made from recycled packaging, and it was maybe organic or some kind of free range, not produced in a factory, no chemicals. That's a psychographic. Geographic. If it's a cold country, do they buy a lot of ice cream? Right. In a hot country, they may not buy so much chocolate because it melts. This is why companies like M&M have the products they do. It doesn't melt in hot countries. Mars Bar produced the Mars Bar ice cream, so they could still sell Mars Bars in hot countries or in the summer in the countries that buy a lot of Mars Bar. So these segmentations are very, very important. And this also maps onto your niche marketing. So you create niche products for different kinds of customer. When Nestle went into the market in America with an espresso machine, Americans like big coffees. Here's a Starbucks mug, right? They like big coffees. Nespresso produced little French coffee cups like this. That was no good for the American market. So they changed the machine to have bigger capsules, bigger portions, because the Americans like big coffees. So this, and a whole new market opened up because of that. Now, when you talk about B2B marketing, you've got to understand the difference between B2C. A B2B market will have what we call a DMU, a decision-making unit, just like a family would. A family might make a decision to go on holiday together. A group of directors or managers may sit down and consult with each other before choosing a particular supplier or brand of computer or venue for the next conference for the business. So you are selling to a multiple decision-making unit, and this makes marketing much more complex and much more challenging. The B2B buying process has these considerations. There are gatekeepers. These are people who try to stop you selling into the company very often. So if I was, for example, selling recruitment, I would be directed towards the HR manager, who would be a gatekeeper and would tell me, probably very politely, they already have recruitment companies, you need to be on a preferred supplier list, and anyway, they're all taken care of, thank you very much. However, the individual manager might be a decision maker who takes staff on, and they may not be very happy with the service they get from the HR department. So maybe you're better off contacting them. Or maybe the procurement department might be worth contacting because, well, they don't think the HR company get a very good deal from their suppliers. You then have groups of people who are maybe users, initiators, and influencers. So where do you start marketing? Well, the trick is to market regularly to all of these folks, but always focus on the decision makers, who are usually the hardest to reach. So reaching a decision maker involves a lot of intelligence from marketing. We have to make them aware of the very fact that we have products and services they may want to buy. We have to make them interested in finding out more. We need to nurture that interest right the way through to get them to purchase. So this is a very important process. Let's put it into context. Let's imagine, once again, I'm a recruitment company and I'm targeting, let's say, accountancy firms. I specialize in accountancy and I'm a marketing manager for a recruitment firm. So I will be constantly marketing my services to these firms, maybe events or talks or emails, maybe some letters and brochures. I might make phone calls and see if I can contact them, both the managers and the HR department. I need to make them aware that my business exists and what I can offer. But then when they have that opportunity, when maybe somebody leaves, I need to recruit more staff, I need them to be able to come back to me and take them through the rest of the funnel. I need to be able to give them good product information, explain my pricing, and put a proposal together. This becomes what we call a customer touch point. This is where marketing overlap with customer service or customer centricity. Every time a customer comes into contact with an organization, it's known as a touch point. Every time they visit a website, every email, every phone call, every time they see an advert in a newspaper or a magazine, it's a touch point. It's helping to shape the perception of that organization to an individual customer or consumer. But we need that touch point to be two-way. It's not enough to just broadcast out to customers. We need to be here. We need to hear what they're saying, not just about our product or service, but about what they want, what they need, and what they like or dislike. Here's an example. I was doing an event many years ago, and the manager who was running the event came over to me and said, Graham, could you give me some feedback at lunchtime as to the food and the refreshments, as to whether you think it's any good? I said, yes, of course, I'd be happy to do that. But can I ask why? And they said, yes, we've just started using a new company. We'd used the other company for about 5 or 6 years, but this is the first time we're using a new company, and I'd like your feedback. Because this is the customer's voice. And I said, okay, great. And I said, what made you change? And they said, well, the company started off really well. We had fantastic service and great buffets and refreshments. But recently, the quality had dropped off and the food wasn't very nice and there wasn't very much of it. We used to get some complaints. So now we decided to change companies. And I said, did you go back to your original supplier and tell them you were unhappy? And they said, no, we just got a letter one day from another company and we said, we're going to try them. So if you don't listen to your customers and they're not satisfied, you will lose them. And all the marketing dollars and all the marketing budget in the world won't change that. Now, you can win them back, but it's harder. So you've got to find ways through social media, through interviews, for email surveys, live chat bots, the net promoter score, any way you can of finding out what your customers want, need, and most importantly, think of the product or services you offer. You've probably had this question asked to you over the years. Quite recently now, this pops up everywhere. How likely are you to recommend our service or product to someone else? How likely are you to use us again? This is known as the Net Promotion Score question, NPS. And you are given a scale of 1 to 10 between 0, nope, never, and yes, absolutely, 10, very likely. Now, why this is important is to understand the psychology of this. You will only promote a product or service to a colleague or friend if you are extremely happy on a consistent basis. And this is the highest form of marketing feedback. So let's imagine that a friend of you says, I need to go to a special event restaurant, my partner's birthday. Is there anywhere you recommend? Now, the restaurant, if you did recommend it, would be one you'd probably been to several times and had very good food and very good service. It's unlikely you'd recommend a restaurant you'd only read about online. Very unlikely. You may recommend a restaurant you've been to once and you thought it was great, but you would say, look, I've only been there once. I don't know how good it is all the time, but we had a good time last time I went. So if you'd been to somewhere, let's say 20 times, and every time or 19 times it had been great, you would recommend it. And you're also more likely to repeat your purchase. So the NPS score is calculated between the difference between those that mark it positively and those that mark it negatively, and you get a percentage score. And this is a target now that a lot of managers are bonused on and also held to account on. So increasing or overcoming problems with your NPS is now a key feature of not just customer service, but also marketing. As I've already mentioned, the most profitable source of new sales are existing customers. You do not spend as much money on promotion or time in selling to them. So we want these passive promoters and active promoters. And this is between 7 and 10. The passives we take out, but the promotions, those that would, are likely to recommend you we count in. Now, the detractors, if someone marks you down as unlikely, say below 5, it's usually because they're not satisfied with some aspect of your product or service. The challenge now is, of course, find out why. It's not enough to know that people don't like it or not buying it. You can often tell that from the sales figures. The NPS will begin to tell you why. So you'll see the second question that appears is, would you recommend this product or service to your colleagues or friends? If not, why not? And if you did say yes, what would you tell them about this product or service? What did you like about it? And that's a really powerful question. I would also put this into the context of internal customer service or internal marketing as well. So that brings us on to module 7. Now, a good marketeer or somebody involved in marketing needs to be good at asking questions and listening. Either when you get the initial brief or when you're trying to understand what customers are looking for. You also need to be very good at expressing the selling points and the benefits of what you're promoting, both in writing, in visuals, and in terms of marketing materials. Let's go through this in more detail. In tomorrow's session on sales and sales planning, we go into questioning techniques in more detail. But basically, there are different kinds of question. Open question is who, what, why, when, how. A closed question is a yes, no answer. A probing question wants more information, as does a paraphrasing. So what you're saying is, how does that work? Hypothetical is a let's imagine, or what would you do if kind of question. A leading question is where you may tie them down to an answer. Would that be okay? Or that's okay, isn't it? And a reflective question is something along the lines of why would you say that? Why is that important to you? And you get people to think carefully about the reasons. We'll come on to these details in more detail. But if you are ever in a position of talking to a customer, don't talk to them, ask lots of questions. And that means listening. People are quite good at hearing, but not listening. So the non-verbal communication, such as eye contact, being attentive, leaning forward, pausing, letting them talk, tuning in to the facts and the feelings, summarizing. Number 5 means summarizing. So what you're saying, if I understand this correctly, Number 4 is also an important form of listening, is request more detail. Tell me what happened next. Or could you explain that further for me? Can you give me an example? So these 2, 4 and 5 will be a black belt, will be taking you to the highest level of listening. Now, if you work in marketing, you will often be working with people like product managers and chief executives and sales directors who will ask you to do things, create a promotion, run an advertising campaign, run an event. Your ability to understand what that internal customer wants requires good questions and lots of listening. And often they may not know what they want. Now, when you're writing what we call advertising copy, which is another thing that people think is all about marketing, there are a few guidelines you need to think about. So this is where you're writing maybe a blog post, an email, a product description, a user manual, the back of a packet, a product description on a website. Always write so everything is clearly understood. Short sentences, short paragraphs, and make sure the sentences are clear. Always try and use words with 3 or fewer syllables. So don't say endeavor, say try. It's actually easier to read and more motivational. The top 3, by the way, the 3 bullet points at the top are to satisfy what has become known as the skim reader. People don't read things carefully, they don't read things properly, and they don't read things at all. They just skim an email, they skim a product description, and they look for keywords. Always use the active voice, which means the cat sat on the mat, not the mat was sat on by the cat. Keep it short. Do not get attached to your sentences. If you write the first draft of something, try and cut out a third of it before you print, publish, or send it. And as a good test, read it aloud one last time before you send it or print it or put it onto some form of promotional website. Even though we live in a very visual world with lots of YouTube and visual images, people do respond well to well-written copy and descriptions. If you want to write an individual email or you want to come across, then write it as you were speaking to them. Use their name and be friendly. Empathy, common ground, and following their lead is a good way of building information and building rapport with somebody. Rapport can be defined as when 2 people are in sync, when they understand each other. In a conversation with somebody, you need to try and get rid of distractions. So physical distractions like having the screen on or a phone around, make sure maybe you drop things down so you don't think about things and keep your mind focused on that moment in time. Organizing yourself and your workload is essential to marketing. It's usually a very busy environment and it's one that's prone to long hours. So make sure that time management figures in your approach and understanding of marketing. At some point, you will need to explain and express your ideas to others, whether this is in public or just one-to-one. But the ability to speak and present your ideas clearly is a really important part of marketing. There's many books written of marketing, which is all about the message of marketing. Speak out with clout. How to get your point across in 30 seconds or less. The marketing message, all of these ideas are there. I mentioned yesterday Apple quite a bit. I mentioned a little bit today. And I do that not because I just love their products, but because their impact on the world of business and marketing has been truly revolutionary. One of the things that Steve Jobs did, which nobody had really done before in his sector, is they had this ability to launch a product, which was just phenomenal. He would hire a theatre or an auditorium, and they would rehearse for 2 or 3 days. They would spend millions on advertising, on videos, on promotions, on television. The very first big advertising video they did back in 1984, based on a 1984 book by George Orwell, was revolutionary. They hired a Hollywood producer. It was like a minute long. It was a massive budget. They blew their whole budget on one video. His presentations of his new products in these auditoriums are now the stuff of legends. So make sure that when you are what they call pitching an idea for marketing, you're pitching the idea for a product or a promotion or a change in pricing, you are able to pitch it well. Half of it is in the message and half of it is in the way it's presented. Clearly, confidently, and with impact. And you can see there are 5 things in these little bubbles. Speak loud and clear, engage your audience, be confident, practice, 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 and know your material very well. This is also true of things like numbers and facts and figures. So when people ask you questions, you know the answers. The quality of your marketing is also based on the quality of the suppliers you use. So here's an example. This is a promotional pen that I could buy and give away to clients or customers. If it's a nice quality pen, they're going to think I'm a nice quality person. If it's a cheap and nasty pen that breaks down after 2 minutes, well, let's hope they don't think that I'm like that. So the quality of the advertising, the printing, the speed with which they work is very important. And a lot of marketeers will use the same suppliers again and again and again. Build those supplier relationships and your marketing will go forward really well. So let me give you some examples in the last 25 minutes or so, and then we'll take some more questions from you. So just to summarize where we are with marketing. Unlike something like engineering or accounting, which is kind of a much simpler concept, marketing is actually a whole range of different activities and skills and processes thrown together under one big roof, the phrase marketing. So it's about, first of all, strategy. What are we selling to who? And how much detail and specific information can we put around that? How well are we using technology, both to distribute, advertise, and promote our product? Teamwork. Are we working well inside our organization and also working well with our suppliers and indeed our distributors, wholesalers, and retailers? Analysis. How much data are we getting back? And how many numbers can we crunch? And what can it teach us about our customers? How much we can learn about the preference of customers and their desires, needs, and wants. Even in a simple business, if you are, like a recruitment company or a local garage, those kind of things. Let's take that example of a gas station. When is the busy times of day? Have you got enough staff on? What is it that people like to buy when they're paying for their gas? Do we have those in the right way, in the right sizes, on display? They can buy them easily. Can we price things attractively to tempt them to cross-sell, to buy something they didn't intend to buy? All these kind of things. By the way, upselling in a gas station is about getting repeated visits above somebody else. Market research is possibly one of the most important aspects of all marketing, and it needs to be continuous. The only way of gaining competitive advantage is understanding your customer better and acting on that. Innovation. Well, innovation is important in marketing, but it isn't everything. Here's an example. Chocolate bars. There's a chance that you listen to this now, there's a chance that many of you from time to time will buy some chocolate, a confectionery item. Now, whether that's a Kit Kat, a Mars bar, a Marathon, an M&M, I don't know what your favorites are, but my knowledge tells me that you will probably buy the same few items over and over again. Every single year, excuse me, manufacturers bring out new chocolate bars. They have fancy names and fancy budgets and fancy flavors, and nearly all of them are doomed to failure because we keep buying the Kit Kats and the M&Ms and the Hershey's that we've always bought. It's very difficult to get us to buy a different style, make, or brand. What they will do is, like M&M are genius at this, they will suddenly have crispy M&Ms or mixed bags of M&Ms or different size of packs or different flavors for limited edition, those kind of things. So don't be fooled by innovation. What customers actually want are small improvements, not massive changes. Social media is a great way of not just promoting, but listening to your customers. It's getting that interaction and feedback and looking at what they say to others about the product or services. You need to be able to promote well. You need to be able to get funding for your projects. Planning and SEO are also essential. Now, planning is the way that marketeers make their money. The way they're seen to the world is in the promotion and the products. But behind every good marketing program, behind every successful product launch, is hours and hours and hours of planning and research and replanning and proposals. So that's the unglamorous part of marketing, but make sure that planning fits into your understanding. So let's look at some examples. I don't know if you're familiar with all of these different products here. I'm just going to pick out a few. NVIDIA at the bottom is a graphics technology that has been very successful, but is not a known brand to most of us. Their market is in the manufacturers of products like laptops, computers, and mobile phones. Their technology is well used by organizations like Acer and Dell, and they are very successful at marketing what they do. Their products constantly are innovated, they're marketed well, and they're priced well. But we've never heard of them. On the other hand, Samsung, well, I think everyone's heard of Samsung. It's a very successful company, but they have a different marketing strategy to, let's say, Asus or Apple. The number of products or services that Apple bring out is far fewer than that of Samsung. If you went to a website that sold these items and typed in Samsung, you would see hundreds of different products and market models and variations of model, whereas Apple may only have a few of any particular product. There might be 3 or 4 MacBooks of a different size. There might be 3 or 4 iPhones, 3 or 4 different solutions for desktops and so on. It's a very different strategy. The product lifecycle in Samsung is very short. The minute you've bought the latest model, the new one is out. Apple have a longer product life cycle. And that's because the development of new product is a lot longer in Apple. And they also don't believe that it's worth changing, it's worth improving. Now, Android, the little green man in the middle, I believe this is a Google product. Once again, interesting branding, little green alien, right? So this is an interesting perception. And there at the top we have Google. Now Google's genius was in creating an algorithm that would search the internet with absolutely astonishing speed and incredible accuracy. In order to monetize that, they also found a way of putting advertising in those searches and charging companies to be on the first page. This is how Amazon have made their money. All these marketing companies, all these companies like Dell and Asus and Apple and Huawei want to sell us products and they want to get our attention. So when we type something into our computer and say, what is the best laptop? Asus wanted to be at the top, and so did Dell. And they auction that attention. So in a microcosm of a second, when you type in what is the best laptop, Google auction the top position to those two companies. The price is varied on every click. Depends on the time of day. Depends on your exact phrase. It depends on whether those companies have any budget left that day or how much they've set their limits to bid for that click. Now, whether that click ever goes for me making a purchase, well, they put little cookies on my computer to find out. So this is a hugely, hugely sophisticated model. But Google, to all of us, I think, is free of charge, unless you have the G Suite, which is actually a very low-cost enterprise system for businesses. But for most of us doing a search or looking up the news or the weather, Google is free. Let's talk about Dell and Asus. Dell started life in America making custom computers for college students. They've now grown into a B2B organization and small businesses too, more recently. And that's because they put a very high level of emphasis on support and quality. They haven't gone down the mass market route of someone like Asus or Acer, but Asus have also decided to differentiate their product because of their product quality and also some of the rather, shall we say, unusual designs and products they developed. They came out with a number of very small products, little tiny netbooks, I think they were called, which were not too effective, but they were trying hard to be different. Their products are stylish. They often come in different colors. Dell have only recently started doing different colors because they'll try and keep it rather simple, if you like, in terms of business-like. Dell have families of products, and these vary in price from a few hundred to a few thousands of pounds. Interestingly, Microsoft have risen to the challenge of Apple's dominance in the quality end of the MacBook by creating the Microsoft Surface Pro, which put Microsoft into a $2,000 bracket for laptops, something they'd previously not been able to do. And that's because Apple had set the bar in terms of innovation, and Microsoft came up behind them and stole market share. Today, the majority of phones will be Androids. They will run the Android operating system. A few will run a Microsoft or Windows operating system, and around 30%, I believe it is, will run the Apple operating system. So Apple's influence in the market is far bigger than its market share, its brand recognition, its brand perception. In the same way that maybe Mercedes or BMW are not mass market vehicles, they're very much for a broad or a niche market. Companies like Toyota, Nissan, Ford, and Chevrolet are the mass market producers that everyone has heard of or knows the models. But Mercedes and BMW have a very big influence over and above their market share. Now, Huawei, if I've said that wrong, I apologize, have an interesting marketing strategy. They started their business selling components to mobile phone companies. I think one of the earliest products I ever bought from them was a dongle that plugged in the side of my computer and allowed it to access the internet via a mobile phone network in the days when you couldn't hotspot your phone and Wi-Fi was unusual. I don't think there probably was any Wi-Fi, certainly free Wi-Fi, for a long time. They then built their status up. They built up their products. They built up their manufacturing facility. They grew in confidence with marketing. And they have now launched, of course, their own range of phones and other facilities too. They also have a niche of developing the mast and the technology that forms the infrastructure of a mobile network in any particular country. And they've done that very carefully and very strategically, and they've moved into what I would call the blue water. There are very few companies that can provide that high-end technology for the 5G mast or breakthrough technology that we're going to see. So they've managed to position themselves through clever marketing over a period of probably 20 years, I suspect, building that up. Dell have been going a similar amount of time, probably, yes, 30 or 40 years. And they still have maintained the brand. Interestingly, when IBM sold its notebook or laptop division to Lenovo, the Chinese company, they lost the brand. The only brand they kept was the IBM ThinkPad. And that's because the IBM ThinkPad had a high regard amongst many corporate and business users. So Lenovo rebranded many of the machines to be Lenovo machines, but they kept the ThinkPad and the IBM ThinkPad logo for those particular machines. The rather serious, unattractive looking black boxes that you see so many times in big company offices. Whilst you may not see so many Dells if you're working in a Starbucks, you will see a lot of Dell computers when you're sitting around in big company offices. They definitely have a solid market share of the corporate market space. Their ability to market large numbers of products en masse to corporations and business B2B buyers has been very, very strong. Whilst companies like Samsung and Asus have gone after the consumer market. So these are just examples of how marketing plays a very important part of taking the same or similar technology on products and services and dividing it down into niche markets. What's interesting is how many products and services Google now do. They have a product that competes with the Microsoft Office 365 suite, the Google Docs and Slides and Sheets. They have numerous products. They have their own range of laptops. They have their own range of phones. They are diversifying in terms of product, but they are staying with much of the same customers. In marketing terms, this is known as leveraging the power of the brand. As I mentioned before, it is easier and more profitable to sell more of your product or services to customers who already use you or love you than it is to try and find new customers. They are definitely in the market now of the late majority. Is there anybody who has a computer that hasn't used Google? There can't be very many. Now, one day there will be a search engine that will replace Google. I'm sure. We know this from marketing. It's not about if, it's when products and services are replaced. But what that looks like, who knows? Who knows? If you can think of it, by the way, then good luck to you. Interestingly, a few years ago, and I was working with a technology company, and we were talking about the next breakthrough, the next big thing is battery life. Because if you remember, just even a few years ago, you could barely go a day without your phone, whether it's a smartphone or an Apple phone, running out of battery. Because they wanted to keep them slim, but the batteries became smaller. Today, what they've done, they can't develop large batteries, long life batteries without making the phone larger. So their technology is now for a fast charging phone. So in actual fact, even if your phone begins to run out of juice halfway through the day, if you can recharge it in 20 minutes, that isn't a problem. Now that was a marketing solution, not a product-led solution, because when the marketing people talk to the users of the phone and they say, yeah, it's a great phone, love my phone, but it keeps running out of battery, they had to fix it because they knew if they didn't and somebody else came along with that solved, they would lose their sales. So it's all about keeping close to the customer, devising a strategy that gives them what they want, and at the same time competes with the other people that offer the same or similar things. Now, before I go into any questions, I want to go back to my original thought and some of the examples I've used already. So Nike, it would be unusual for you as well not to have heard of Nike. And I suspect many of you listening to this, 2,500 of you, will have Nike products or have bought Nike products at some point in your life. They do lots of things, as you can see on this circle. Yes, they do out-of-home advertising. They do huge amounts on social media. They use word-of-mouth marketing. That's where you tell someone who tells someone who tells someone. They have a corporate culture that they communicate. Their employee communications, the internal marketing is very strong. Do they have great products? Many millions of people think so. Their point of sale, they now have their own shops and they control the sale of their products through retailers very strongly. They have a mobile presence. You can download a very good Nike app to help you train and track your fitness. Their whole web presence is excellent. Their media relations, their events, they run their own events. They do big product launches. They do a lot of press, a lot of influencing. They also do more charitable events and sponsorship. Of course, we all know them for their endorsements. The sponsorship of major sports stars. Tiger Woods was a very famous one, and their strategy there was interesting. They used to sponsor hundreds of different sports people, giving out money for them to wear and endorse the Nike brand. They then decided to bring it down to a small number of very, very successful sports people, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, and a few others. And they began to pay big bucks in sponsorship. I mean, huge millions and millions of pounds for these people, not just to wear Nike, but to come out as what they call brand ambassadors. So this was a big change that everyone followed. Their print and TV advertising now is slightly lower than it used to be because their digital marketing is so much more impressive. In some cases, they almost don't need to do any marketing because when they bring out a new pair of trainers or a new top, if they get it right in terms of what customers want, it sells by word of mouth. Somebody goes to college, goes to school, goes to work in a new pair of Nike shoes or wearing a particular Nike top, and the others see that and want that too. So this is a massive thing. When you put on a Nike top, you put on a pair of Nike trainers, you're putting on something about yourself. You are talking to the world and saying, I'm a Nike. You know the slogan, don't you? What is the slogan of Nike? Just do it. I'm a just do it kind of guy. That's what you're saying when you put on Nike. And it's different when you put on Adidas or you put on an ASICS or you put on something without a brand name. Now, Nike don't actually make shoes, by the way. Those are made by factories around the world under license. So it isn't about the product, it's about the way it's marketed. And that's a great example of the expertise. Now, could Nike diversify out of sportswear? Could they start branding a range of computers or mobile phones? Who knows? Who knows? Maybe they could, because it's about differentiation into the same customer base. So brand awareness is so important. I started my talk today asking you about Toyota or Nissan. Which would you choose? Now, it's up to you. They're both excellent makes of cars. The harder question is, why would you choose one over the other? You might appreciate some of the technology, some of the features, the design, aesthetics of one car over another, or it just might be that one brand is seen as a higher status or more luxurious, or gives out the right messages to you, to your friends and your family and your colleagues. Here's an example, right? Microsoft. Is Microsoft cool? Is Microsoft a cool brand? Would you want to wear a t-shirt that said Microsoft on it? Now, it's a hugely successful company and their products are genius. They're fantastic, but it's not a cool company. It's a bit sort of company that's a bit dull. It's very worthy. It's kind of sensible. You know, it's not funky. It's not a Slack. It's not an Instagram kind of thing, right? It's a corporate business tool. Now, the secret and the genius of Microsoft marketing is this. When the PC, the IBM PC, first came out, it had no operating system. Bill Gates and Microsoft at that time had 22 employees. IBM had 300,000, but none of them had any skill or knowledge of microcomputers. All they did was mainframes. Bill Gates was asked to write the operating system called MS-DOS, or PC-DOS as it was known. Microsoft saw the opportunity to build some application software, word processing, spreadsheets, those kind of tools that people could use on a computer. But in those days, and this is going to sound strange for those of you who can't imagine this, the data was incompatible. I couldn't take a spreadsheet and drop it into my PowerPoint. I couldn't take text from my word processor and drop it into my spreadsheet. I couldn't integrate. I couldn't even take text from WordStar and put it into Word or Multimate. I had Lotus 123, and I couldn't take that data into anything else. It was so difficult trying to create this synergy between products. So what Microsoft did is they created an environment of Office products that you could copy and paste data between all of them, and they standardized the market so everybody was using Microsoft Doc products and PPT products and XLS products. And so if I sent you a file, you would have the right software to read it and not go through this, oh, I can't read it because I'm using Multimate. So that was the gap in the market that Bill Gates and his colleagues spotted, was a need for a consistent, universal series of applications that integrated together. And now if you look at Microsoft, their range of options with Teams and SharePoint and OnePoint and all these things is huge. And it's all based on what customers want, need, or looking for. There are two recent acquisitions of note. I mean, there's many, but they bought Skype a few years ago, which of course is now Teams. They also purchased an organization, a company called LinkedIn. I think they paid $19 billion for that. And LinkedIn has no value in terms of profitability. No one's worked out how to make money from LinkedIn yet. But Microsoft somewhere believe there is a marketing opportunity for LinkedIn. And somehow when it's integrated in with CRM Dynamics or some other platform, it could become a very profitable company. More skeptical marketing people will say they only purchased LinkedIn to stop Facebook buying it or somebody else buying it or Google or someone, which is also important. And that's a key consideration of marketing, is you buy your competitors to protect your own base. So whenever you see a company now, whenever you see a product being advertised, whenever you see a banner advert pop up or something being on the shelf, I want you to look carefully and think carefully about what is the marketing power and the marketing intelligence that's gone into that product or service, even down to the colors and the logo and the packaging. And these last thing here, the branding, these three cars, they have the same top speed, They have the same miles per gallon. They're all as comfortable and as beautiful as each other, but buying them, driving them, and owning them is a very different experience. The Audi driver probably wouldn't want a Mercedes. Mercedes wouldn't want a BMW. The BMW man might want an Audi, but maybe not a Mercedes. So think about branding and what that means to you in your business and also in your career. So I'm going to pause now. I would like to remind you that you have the questions, the recall questions at the end of the slides that you're going to get. But I wanted to ask Anisha if I know the Q&A questions have been coming thick and fast today. If we can just finish off the last 10 minutes of the session by picking out a few interesting questions or common questions people have had, and I will do my best to try and answer them if I can.
Sure, Graham. So I've picked a couple of questions for you. And the first one, this is an anonymous question.
Yeah.
The question is, did the evolution of internet make marketing an easier job? And what, in your opinion, is better, online marketing or classic marketing?
Okay. Did it make it an easier job? First question. It did in many ways. We can target customers like we've never targeted them before. We can literally be very, 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 very specific on each of those different individuals. So they will know where I do, where I go, which websites I visit, what I buy, how I buy it. Massive, massive amount of data. It makes it more difficult though, because there's no hiding place. With a little bit of research, I can find out everything about a product or service. I can see pricing all over the world. I can find cheaper pricing. I can see reviews. I can see what other people are doing. You can't hide bad products or services anymore. However, there are still products or services and people buy them, but they buy them knowingly. So I think classic marketing in terms of positioning, understanding, and researching is still really important. And remember, there is a large percentage of wealthy people who are not as online as many of us are. So, and I don't mean by age, but I mean, a lot of people just don't have a lifestyle where they use the computer as much as maybe you or me from that point of view. And they would love to go much more in a shop. And some things we don't buy online, so we prefer to go into a showroom or we go into a travel agent and an office. So I do think it is easier, but I wouldn't forget the classics of marketing in terms of getting your product, your price, your promotion, and your distribution right. One thing which is really good about the internet is I can go direct to my customer. I can buy these pens. I bought 5,000 of these direct from a factory in China. And I didn't have to go through 3 different channels. And so therefore it was easier, it was cheaper, and I could quality control it better. So yeah, I think the internet today, there's only one marketing to me, and that's 70% internet. Absolutely. Yeah, good question. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for answering that, Graham. And this one, I noticed a lot of people were interested in asking, how does Apple maintain good sales, although most consumers are not satisfied about the price? So is it the quality of the product that's making them buy the expensive Apple products?
Okay, very good question. Apple make a lot of money off everything they sell because they sell, in many cases, they sell it direct and their margins are huge compared to many companies like Dell. When you buy an Apple product, you're not buying a computer. Don't even think about it. If I want a computer, I can buy the same technology for 1/3 of the price. What I'm buying is status. I'm buying lifestyle statement. I'm buying a feeling of using something which is different to using an Acer or an Apple, an IBM or something like that. When I raise my lid in my coffee shop and everyone can see I've got an Apple, that's what I'm buying. When Apple needed a new marketing director, head of marketing for the Globe a few years ago. They hired the person who had been head of marketing for Burberry handbags and coats. They didn't know anything about technology, marketing, or they weren't working for a computer company or a mobile phone company. They were working for a high end, high status fashion retailer. Apple have created a kind of an aura around their products. And yes, there are cheaper products. And now with the Microsoft Surface Pro, there are products as good, but nothing is an Apple. And what's interesting, if you call Apple or you go into a store and you ask them about the computer, they won't tell you about how much memory it's got or what the clock speed is or what the processing speed or the write speed of the hard drive. They will just get you to try it. And it has a look and a feel about it. And I think in terms of marketing, Apple are like Sony and they have a very long term view of their customer base. Sony are famous for having 50-year marketing plans, and Apple will come back to companies, come back to individuals and sell another product and another product and another product. And most people who have an Apple computer have at least two other products as well, whether that's a player or a phone or a tablet or a second computer. So they are very, very good at managing the price up because of the quality and also the support. By the way, if you have a problem with an Apple product, you take it back in, they'll fix it and they'll fix it really well and often won't charge you for it. But they also know that customers are loyal to Apple products. And I think I've got about 5 different Apple products. I've also got, other products as well. So they are not shy of boasting about the quality of their product and charging handsomely for it. And I think there's a lesson there for a lot of companies. If you have something which has outstanding quality or has a real advantage in terms of look and feel and usability and function, then differentiate yourself with a price. Yeah, I hope that answers the question. I know they're not everybody's favorite choice, but in marketing terms, they're a phenomenon that many marketing companies kind of scratch their head and go, but how do Apple do it, right? Um, One last point on this before I hand back to Anisha is if you go into an Apple store, it doesn't look like a computer store. There's no special offer signs. It's very, very minimalist. There's only a few desks with the tables with the computer spread out. It's not like a computer shop at all. And that's deliberate. It has a feel of being in an art gallery. That's what I always think. And it's a different experience. And they that whole marketing strategy goes through even the packaging, even the box, the way the box lid lifts off, and the way the things are fitted in the box is phenomenal from a marketing point of view. So it's what you add to the product or service is the marketing perception. So I think that's a great question. Thanks for asking that. Anisha, a couple more before we go.
Sure. So the next question, this one is also an anonymous question. Uh, are there any certain set of rules that needs to be followed while selecting your target market?
Yep, yep, there are definitely some rules and definitely some guidelines. Um, I would go back to the slide where I had the demographics and psychographics and lifestyle things. Um, and don't try to sell to people who are never going to buy your product. Um, own your market really clearly. Um, and this is true of big name retailers like Marks and Spencers or BP or Shell. I mean, why would someone drive past a Shell garage to a BP garage, which was more expensive and further away? These are key questions. So the processes are: number one, do your research, follow that research, and keep doing your research and get the data about your product, not just sales, but satisfaction. And then keep a close eye on your competitors. So that's the process: is do your research, manage the research as you make more sales, and keep watching your competitors. That's the three things that I would recommend if you want to follow a process of good marketing. Yeah, good. One more question, and then we'll wrap up, please, Anisha.
Sure. So I have a question from Salman who wants you to clarify the difference between upselling and upgrading.
Okay, okay. Upselling and upgrading. Yeah, upgrading is where I take you to a different model. I take you to a much better model. So I go in to buy myself a jacket, a suit, and I have in my head I'm going to spend, I don't know, $500 on a suit. And instead of spending 550, you convinced me to buy two suits at $800 each in a special offer, right? And just a whole different ball game, just upgrade completely. And so this is a major marketing process where I just a very famous fashion retailer told me this is that in a ladies fashion store they will put lovely bags and handbags in the window, and these are expensive but not that expensive, but they come in to see the bag and then they upgrade them to a much higher level of purchase. And we do this a lot, by the way, on the internet. You may start off by using an app or a software platform on a free basis or a very low cost basis, $10 a month. And then a few weeks or a few months later, you're trying to do something and they upgrade you to one which is like $50 or $100. Now, this is a strategic plan. It's not an accident. I tell you who do this really well. Salesforce do this really well. HubSpot. You go and get a HubSpot. You get a free login to HubSpot. Phenomenal program, by the way. But they want to do something and say, oh, if you want to do that, you have to upgrade. Oh, okay. So the difference between upsell and upgrade is an upgrade happens once you become a customer and they can trade you in and upgrade you to the next model, the next model. An upsell is where I add on something at the point of sale. Okay, that's the easy explanation. It's an easy explanation. Upgrades I want you to do. I trade in your computer, I trade in your car, and I upgrade you to the next model. Leasing companies do this for cars, by the way. They say, listen, you're not over your lease. You bring it back. You can have a new car. Just sign a new lease. It's that difference. Upgrading when they're a customer. Yeah, very good strategy, by the way. Keeps your competition out of your customers' hands. Definitely. Good. Okay, so I'm going to pause there. Hopefully, I've given you enough information about marketing for you to understand it, to position it. And even if you're not in a marketing field yourself, I would really encourage you to be fascinated by why organizations do what they do when it comes to marketing, particularly around things like promotion and price and branding. These are endless areas of fascination for me, and they reflect very much the society and the world we live in. So do remember to do that quiz when you get those slides, answer those questions, and I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow when we're going to continue the business skills presentations. And tomorrow it's all about sales planning and the sales process. So Anisha, let me hand back to you for any last final comments, if I may.
I think that is all, and thank you so much for taking us through another informative session. And I'd like to thank everyone who's present today for being such an interactive audience. I apologize we couldn't respond to all the questions. We have tried to respond to as many questions as possible today. And we will upload the recording of today's session on Prism at 7 p.m. and it will be available until 10 a.m. in the morning tomorrow. Hope everyone enjoyed today's lesson, and I'll see you guys tomorrow at 11 in the morning for another interesting session. So goodbye everyone and have a lovely day.
Okay, bye everybody. Okay, be good. Bye.